Hello, I'm Steve Lentini, and I'm the host of the podcast Different Thinking for Different Times, Season 6, Episode 10. I'm working on a new program called No BS Spiritual Mastery for Men. In this podcast, I've never addressed just men. I'm addressing both men and women because what I learned during my near-death experience, or what I learned by dying. I was in intensive care one second, and the next second, I was one with everything and nothing. And the biggest thing I want to share with you, for me, the biggest experience, the greatest gift of my life was to learn our thinking is ass backwards. We think like God, and we take literal all the stories about God, all the stories about the divine, and really it's false. We don't think like God. Nowhere near, by the way. At least in my experience. I'm not trying to convince you of anything. For me, I don't think God has a religion, not in my experience. The creator of everything in a universe, imagine how expansive that is, right? A universe. We humans call it a universe because we don't grasp something limitless. And I think from what I learned is my job is to work on becoming more like God. And that has to be inclusive and appreciate all the different life forms, and to know, by the way, that God is never absent. I'll be talking about that in my new book, 24-Hour Good News, The Infinite Walks With Us. Never absent. I was in intensive care with two friends at the end of my bed one second. The next second, I was one with everything and nothing. Pure consciousness. Light, mercy, grace, all the things that are spoken about by many people, far, 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 infinitely farther away from my own thinking, my small-minded thinking. That's how I came up with the acorn brain, realizing that none of that thinking went with me. And I wasn't able to comprehend that till I got back in my body. I've shared on this podcast that one second in intensive care, two friends at the end of my bed. The next second, no body, just consciousness. One with everything and nothing, which is so fascinating because the universe, by the way, at one point was everything and nothing until the Big Bang, which is energy, right? The universe is energy, and the energy we put out, the energy we think about, has an impact on our lives. But you got to prove this to yourself, that if you're walking around with complaints about people, complaints about political parties, religions, your boss, the company, your spouse, your family, strangers, your neighbor, you are actually withholding your good, because the way energy works is it's reciprocal. The energy you put out is the energy that comes back, which is what humans do. We all fall down, by the way. We all fall down. I ask people, did you learn to walk without ever falling? That's what we're here to do. But humans, right? The small-minded thinker, and you might be one of them. That's okay. I was. Thinks that if you don't follow my religion, you don't follow my political party, you don't follow my beliefs about anything, you're wrong if you don't follow my beliefs. And I don't believe that anymore. I don't care what people believe. I appreciate it. It fascinates me that we're all different, and I've come to appreciate it. It's taken some work, and it's now part of my journey, thanks to that near-death experience, or dying in intensive care, 22 years ago, November 18th. It'll be 23 years this year. And that's what gave me my purpose. The darkest moment, I ended up in the hospital 100 days, 60 days straight, and 40 out of the next 60. 5 days into intensive care, I flatlined. And that gave me the greatest gift of my life, a glimpse of what's next. I don't call it death anymore, and I'm not afraid of it because I've done it. And none of us should fear it. It's only a what's next. And that's part of the experience that I share. 1 second in intensive care, the next second, no body, one with everything and nothing. Pure consciousness, immense grace, light, mercy, everything that you've heard people describe it as. The next second, there was a life review. It was like a scene. It was like I was at a play, a scene and a scene and a scene. There was a life review, and only the good I had done, only the lives I had touched was mentioned. It all flashed before me. And then I was asked a question, stay or go? And I could not tie the events together while there because there was only the now, which tells me that God is never absent. Here we separate ourselves from God. When people want to know where is God and how do you find God, God's here right now. Or the divine or the goddess or the quantum field or the Buddha, the Brahma, the Buddha, the Brahma, the Abraham, the Christ, the Muhammad, the Vedic traditions. It doesn't matter what you call it. We're one with it. And our job is to enjoy this and appreciate all the differences. And when you're railing against others, which so many people are doing, no matter what the topic, they're railing against people, wasting energy, doesn't matter what side you're on, instead of appreciating the fact that there's supposed to be differences. Imagine if we were all the same. You wouldn't even know you were alive. That's the purpose of the contrast. And then the difference between doing good or evil, you feel it. When you do good, when I ask people this question, when you do good, how do you feel? 99.9999% have said, I feel great when I do good. Yeah, think about that. There's a reason for it. That's an energy that's benefiting the earth and the universe, for all I know. I don't know the whole. I didn't get the whole picture, all the answers. I don't profess that I know them, except that every day I'm grateful. I wake up and say, thank you, Lord. Thank you, God. For me, it's God. It's just simple enough because it's so far above my own thinking. It was so far, infinitely farther above this little brain that we see all over the place because humans want to be right. That's what we can't let go of. We can't let go of it. We want to be right. And we'll do anything. We'll argue and rail. Look at the people on social media wasting their time. I chuckle. I never read any responses to my social posts, my X posts, my Instagram. I don't care. I'm stating what I experience, what I believe, and my thoughts. That we have to work on expanding this brain, this acorn brain, that small-minded thinker. And the good news is it can be reprogrammed. You can remind. I put that in quotes like Joe Dispenza does. That's where I got it. Joe Dispenza says you can remind yourself. And that's what's required to live a life of joy and happiness. And that means you accept everything. You embrace life as it is. I wrote about that in my book, In Plain Sight. Learn to see what most people miss and embrace life as it is. You can go to Amazon if you're interested and get it. I'm not here to sell anything. I've had people reach out to me and tell me they were changed by a number of my books. I've written 12 books. They thank me for it. That's That's a gift when I get those moments. And amazing life has unfolded doing my own work in the 22 years. Amazing. I embrace life as a gift. And am I happy every day with what shows up? Of course not. The acorn brain wants to take over. And then I work to catch it, right? Because I notice it. I'm developing a level of thinking above my thinking. And it's a journey. I won't ever reach the destination. And there's only my way. My way is none of your business, by the way. You can try it. I encourage people to prove it to themselves, make their life an experiment, do good, help others, say positive, encouraging words, learn to appreciate, especially the people that bother you and the situations that bother you. That's the divine, the infinite God. The God is knocking on your door so that you learn and grow. Instead of reacting, sit back and say, wow, I got a lot to learn here. Thank you, God. Thank you, the goddess. Thank you, divine. Thank you, Abraham. Thank you, Buddha, Brahma. Thank you, Christ, who talked about doing good. Thank you, Muhammad, who said what reaches you was never meant to miss you. Think about that. And what misses you was never meant to reach you. That's about embracing life as it is. Now, people who recorded those words many, many, many years after all the prophets died, when you read any of the writings, you can see where the human small-minded thinker pops in. You can see it. I'm not going to explain it to you. You know what I'm talking about. When it's small-minded, it's not from what created a universe, whatever you call it. I say what Einstein used to say when people asked him, what's your idea of God? And he said two things. One was that the superior reasoning power that created this unimaginable universe forms my idea of God. The second way he would answer people was this: read The God of Spinoza. Google it, read it. It's going to bother you. I tell you, it'll bother you. I loved it because I only learned of it after I had this near-death or dying experience. I experienced what Baruch Spinoza was talking about in the 1600s. Now you could Google Benedict Spinoza. He changed his name at some point in time because he was shunned. Imagine in the 1600s, saying that you don't have to talk about God or pray, but to enjoy this miracle we've been given and that we live in, that we still don't understand, by the way. Does any of you know how the universe was created? A few months ago, scientists discovered I'm not sure it's an exoplanet, but anyway, it's an object in the universe spinning 756 times per second, faster than our kitchen blenders. I think it was components of a dead star, but here it is out in the universe spinning. And we're discovering things all the time with the telescopes, the new telescopes. Imagine, and they are only scratching the surface. We don't know what we live in except this. Here's what I tell myself every day. And I want you to think about it. If it's up to you, right? You don't have to. I don't care. This is the world painted on a marble. And physicists say we're probably even smaller than that in relation to the size of the universe. We're probably on a grain of sand. So tell me you understand what we're living in. And the amazing thing is we have free will. We can choose to make this heaven or hell. The thing is we decide what's good or bad. That's what separates us. Everything is God. There isn't a place where God isn't. And you might want to say, well, it's not in some of the wars or the riots or the burning or the breaking in the Capitol or It's not in Israel or Palestine. It's everywhere because that's how we're going to learn, and we continue to learn, to make new choices. But I don't want to convince you of that. You got to prove it to yourself. Never follow anyone or anything blindly. Look at the times in history where people have done that. It hasn't worked out so well, right? How'd that work out? This is something for you to decide. And I'm living in an amazing miracle. And I haven't reached nirvana. I still have plenty of challenges. And I remind myself all during the day, every day, to take gratitude breaks and appreciate everything that shows up. What bothers me is there to teach me. Who bothers me is there to teach me. Those people and events that bother me the most are there to teach me. They're my greatest teachers. 22 years ago, I was doing a seminar for my training clients. One second I was fine, I never had any symptoms. The next second I needed an ambulance. I had been studying the power of gratitude, and I was grateful waiting for the ambulance. It overwhelmed me, this feeling of gratitude. People in the office that were waiting for the EMTs to arrive in the ambulance were asking me, Steve, how you doing? I said, I don't know how my body's doing, and I'm grateful. I felt the divine presence, the presence of God. When the EMTs came and asked me the same question, I said, I don't know how my body's doing. I'm grateful. I'm grateful. And they were like, wow, this guy needs a shrink and an emergency room doctor. Because we don't talk much about gratitude. Now it's improving. I've heard our leaders talk about gratitude. Not everyone. There's many that still rail and complain because, after all, they know better, right? That's an elitist view. If you think you're getting to heaven and God's going to say, I know better than you, you're missing the point. You haven't expanded your thinking. There is no one better, and neither are you beneath anyone. That's just the way it is. We're energy. We're moving through life. And what's happening in your life is a result of the own energy you create. You're the creator of your experience with God or the divine or the quantum field, the Brahma, the Buddha, the Abraham, the Christ, the Muhammad. Doesn't matter what you call it. It's not small-minded like we are. It's not. That's our job. We don't think like God. We think we do. Because we are made in the image and likeness of God. No, that's our job, is to become more infinite-minded, more like the creator of a universe. And you have your own little universe. If you're struggling a lot with people, you've got complaints, you're putting out an energy that will return more of that to you. You're the knot in an electrical circuit, which causes a circuit breaker to pop. And you won't reset that circuit breaker if you go right back to grievances and complaints. If it's stored in up here, or you're railing against others because you believe you're right, that's not what made a universe, at least in my experience. You got to prove it to yourself. Change the energy you're putting out. Be grateful for the contrast, because if we all looked the same, talked the same, sounded the same, we wouldn't know we were alive. That's what this experience is for. As John Maxwell says, this life is about getting over ourselves and to enjoy the miracle. There's so many beautiful miracles in this world. You can also be a miracle for someone. It might be the person that knocks on your window in a rest area and says, could you help me? My debit card is not working. Rather than judging them, being angry, telling them to go away, say, you know what? This must be God testing me, the divine. I'm getting an opportunity to do good. Give them what you can. You got $10, give them $10. You got more? I have had so many of those experiences now because I appreciate everything and everyone that shows up because I know it's all God. And my goal every day is to leave everything and everyone a little better than I find them. And that has had an amazing impact in my life. Now, I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I've proven it to myself. And it wasn't that way 22 years ago. God gave me the greatest gift by whacking me with a 2x4. And I hope the same thing happens for you. It's up to you. It's your journey. And if not, you may get little inklings, little God wings about things that really bother you. And you sink into small-minded thinking. If you start to expand your thinking, you can prove this concept to yourself, which is what I'm urging you all to do. I've had a few people that's made a difference. This podcast is now in 31 countries. And my goal is I don't make any money off of it. It's not what my intention was. I'm doing God's work. I'm doing good. And I'm not trying to convince you of anything because that would be elitist. If I told you my way was the way, no. Each journey is like a fingerprint. We all have a unique journey, each of us. And your journey is perfect the way it is. And by the way, your journey is none of my business. And my journey is none of your business. But we don't see that today. We don't even see it from our leaders. It's fascinating. They model poor behavior, whether it's religious leaders or political leaders. In many cases, corporate leaders, they model poor behavior and they wonder why everyone around them does the same poor behavior. They're modeling it. They model it and expect us to behave differently. Right? That's small-minded thinking. The behavior you model is modeled back to you by others around you. So if you're living with a lot of complaints and grievances, get them out or let them go. That's the gift in a grievance or a complaint. You bring it to the person that can do something about it. If you're gossiping, instead of gossiping, go to the neighbor, go to the girlfriend, go to the boyfriend, go to the boss and do something about it. Or let it go and shut up because gossip is a negative energy. You're just going to get people gossiping about you. So I'm not trying to convince you of anything except experiment with your life. Notice where you have small-minded thinking and see if you can expand it. And if not, I'm grateful you're here too because I get to see it. I get to see the result and the impact of small-minded thinking. Like criminal behavior is very small-minded thinking. And then making others wrong because they don't believe as you, small-minded thinking. They don't follow your religion or belong to it, small-minded thinking. There's only one way to get to heaven or God. In a universe that created 8 billion beings, there's one religion? We still don't know what this universe is made of. Even Christ said there's many rooms in my Father's house. And of course, then it was later translated that you had to follow him in order to get in. Now, I confess, I was going to be a priest until I met Sophie on the high school bus. I knew that was out the window. A Catholic priest, anyway. And my journey since then was studying many other faiths. The Hindu, the Muslim, the different Christ followers, right? Because there's many different sects, so to speak. The Kabbalah, the Jewish traditions, the Torah, the Vedic traditions. And so I can tell you There's so much similarity in all of them, right? And many are rooted in the Abrahamic tradition. And yet, small-minded, of course, we want to be right. That's the voice to be noticing of. When you want to be right and make everyone around you wrong, or the person in front of you wrong, that's where you've sunk into small-minded thinking, which may be where the term the devil came from years ago, right? Because it's mostly in 99.999%, it's in our heads, the voice that urges us to do things. And we don't put a pause in to say, wait a minute, what good will this do? What good will this do? That's something my mother left me with, because she would always say, always ask, what good will this do? Before you speak, before you do anything, what good will this do? So that's what I'm going to leave you with in this episode of Different Thinking for Different Times. Season 6, episode 11. I'm grateful for this journey. I'm grateful for that gift. I can tell you that if you start working on your brain, you'll notice that the most difficult people, if you think back, have been your greatest teachers. Your most challenging moments have probably been the greatest gifts. If you're in those moments, then trust me, look back. You'll find it in 5 years, 3 years, a year. You'll see the string of synchronicities that brought you to growth and expansion. That's what God wants for us all. To overcome the small-minded thinker and do good. Stretch ourselves. Appreciate this amazing creation and all its differences. If you have any questions for me, Steve at SteveLentini.com. Here, I'll show you how to spell it. Here's another book, my No BS Coaching. Steve at SteveLentini.com. Steve at SteveLentini.com. I also have Steve at Steve Lentini. No, I have SteveLentiniAuthor.com if you'd like to go to my website, Steve Lentini Author. So here, Steve Lentini at author.com, and you'll go to my website and see all the books I've written. I'm not trying to sell anything. And Friday, I have No BS Spiritual Mastery for Men. It's free. It'll be 45 minutes at 7 a.m. We ought to be early birds. If enough people wanted me to do a later version, I would. 7 a.m. Friday. Email me, Steve at SteveLentini.com. Steve at SteveLentini.com. And I'll give you the link for Zoom for Friday morning, March 28th. All right. Enjoy. I have great guests upcoming, by the way, on the podcast. And again, I'm working with people who want to stretch the thinking of humanity, the small-minded thinking. Consider something new. That's why it bothers you. That's why it bothers you. Wayne Dyer used to say, when you squeeze an orange, you get orange juice. When we get squeezed, we get what we need to work on. And most people would prefer to have the complaint. It's what I call victim consciousness, instead of embracing life as it is, that it's happening for you. God is never absent. All right, any questions? Like I said, email me, Steve at SteveLentini.com. You want to be a guest? Challenge me even. I'm fine. I'll appreciate you and where you're coming from. I'll ask. Does that sound like small-minded thinking? Thank you.